What's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be talking about the Baltimore Ravens going finally into the AFC North here, wrapping it up with, I think, the top two teams in the division and two teams who beat the shit out of each other every time they play, the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This rivalry is probably one of the best rivalries in football. They play each other tough. If you like defensive games, these are the games that you like to watch. Baltimore and Pittsburgh. These two teams get after each other. They hate each other. You can just tell that they've hated each other for so long. Now, looking at what the Ravens did in this past offseason, I will say, I know a lot of people did not like their draft, but how could you not like their draft? This team is trying to maintain its dominant edge on the defensive side of the ball. They have already one of the best run-stopping units in the league. I think last year they were top 5. And what they did was just add to that. They added to their pass rush. They added to their secondary with players like Marlon Humphrey, Tyus Bowser, and Tim Williams. I think those are solid picks. You got 2 guys from Alabama. You drafted a Michigan player in Chris Wormley to play defensive end, defensive tackle. And you drafted Tyus Bowser, somebody who flew up draft boards, and I thought that my team was going to draft in the second round. Now, this team is a year older on the offensive side of the ball. They're an average offensive team, in my opinion. Joe Flacco is a very solid quarterback, but he's coming off of a back injury, and back injuries to quarterbacks are the worst type of injuries. Look at Tony Romo, Troy Aikman, Steve Young. If you have a back injury as a quarterback, it's just not good. It's just not good for you because you're using your back a lot, and especially blindside hits too. I'll get in with some of their additions. They brought in Danny Woodhead to replace Kyle Juszczyk, who was probably one of the best fullbacks in the league at catching passes down the field. He went ahead and signed with the 49ers. So that'll be interesting to see how they use Woodhead. Obviously, they're going to use him on third downs and third and longs. Don't see him running the ball, but he is coming off of a torn ACL, and he's 32, so he's a bit up there in age. They brought in Jeremy Maclin, who's actually, in my opinion, a little underrated as a number 1 receiver. He's a high-end number 2 receiver, though, so there is that. They brought in Brandon Carr, who you know will play through anything. I know firsthand as a Cowboy fan that he's not going to be a playmaker, but he's gotten a lot better at making tackles at the line of scrimmage and fighting through blocks, and he never really gets hurt, and he's a great all-around person as well. They brought in Brandon Boykin and somebody who had a career year last year in Tony Jefferson, safety, to pair with Eric Weddle, one of the better safeties in the league as well. Now, overall, this team still has John Harbaugh, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league, especially clock management. The only problem on this team is their receiving corps, which is below average in my eyes. I mean, Jeremy Maclin's a good guy to have on your team. Mike Wallace is pretty solid, but he drops a lot of passes. Their tight ends, Dennis Pitta can never seem to stay healthy. They drafted Max Williams a couple years ago, and he hasn't lived up to his second-round hype. So, I mean, there's just a lot of question marks on this team's offensive side of the ball. Overall, I can see this team making some noise, but they have to win 10 games. I feel like in the AFC, because it's so top-heavy, you have to win 10 games to at least get a playoff. I think 10 games is the mark for every team to make the playoffs. 10 games. If you can get to 10 games, give yourself a chance. 9 is pushing it. 8, you're not making the playoffs. In this division, though, I think 10 could win you the division, especially if you're playing great football and you're giving your offense a chance, especially this team's offense, which doesn't have a running back, has an average offensive line. This team needs to control the clock and let their defense get their stops and let basically Justin Tucker's winning games for you. If they can win games like 13-7, 20-17, anything where they're keeping opponents below 17 points, I think this team will win a lot of games. Now, looking at the Ravens' overall schedule, we know they play the AFC North. We know that they play the AFC South and the NFC North. Their 2 playoff games will be the Oakland Raiders. It's a tough one. And the Tennessee Titans. No, I'm lying. the Oakland Raiders, and the Miami Dolphins, because they finished second last year in their division. So looking at this team's overall schedule, they don't have a too crazy schedule, and they play the NFC North too. That's also very tough. A semi-tough division against Green Bay at least. Minnesota has a great defense too. So let's go ahead and take a look at their schedule here. At Cincinnati, that's a win. Versus Cleveland, that's a win. At Jacksonville, that should be a win. So they could start the season 3-0 before running into Pittsburgh here. I think last year they started 4-0 or 3-0 too, and then they started losing games. Versus Pittsburgh, that's a toss-up. They play each other tough. I don't like that that's a 10 o'clock game, though, in the West Coast. I don't like that. I feel like that game should be a later game. At Oakland, toss-up. Oakland's a good offensive team. Now you have strength versus strength, offense versus defense. It's a toss-up to me. I think Oakland will prevail, but it's a toss-up because of Baltimore's defense. I think they can give fits to Carr. Versus Chicago, that's a win. At Minnesota, that's a toss-up. Like I said, Minnesota's defense is great. Baltimore's offense is average. Baltimore's defense is great. Minnesota's offense is average. Could be a 13-10 game. Versus Miami, I think that's a win on a Thursday night. Jay Cutler doesn't have a chance against them. At Tennessee, toss-up. Tennessee, strength versus strength again. Tennessee's running game, Baltimore's run-stopping unit. If we remember last year, Baltimore played Baltimore played Dallas. Dallas had the league's #1 rated rushing offense against the #1 rated rushing defense. And Zeke Elliott, I think, ran for 120. And Tennessee and Dallas are basically almost the same team in the way that they run the ball. They hit their bye week late, week 10. That's always a plus when you can get your bye week later. Then they got at Green Bay. I think that's a loss. Versus Houston on a Monday night. Toss-up. It's a tough game anyway. Sunday versus Detroit. Sunday, December 3rd versus Detroit. I think they could beat Detroit. Sunday night, of course, Pittsburgh against Baltimore. Toss-up. That game's going to be nationally spotlight. It's going to be a great game to watch. Late in the season, too. At Cleveland, they'll win that game. Versus Indianapolis. If Luck is playing, it could be a tough game, but I think Baltimore will prevail. Versus Cincinnati, I think they'll lose that game. I think they'll split against Cincinnati at some point. Now, based upon what we did here, I can see the team finishing 10-6. They could. That could be their best overall record, 10-6. Possible wild card berth. Their lowest record would be 7-9. There's some tricky games here. There's some tricky games here. A lot of teams have improved, but I can see this team is still strong defensively to keep them in games. They have a great special teams unit, especially Justin Tucker. Somebody who obviously doesn't get talked about because he's a kicker, but he scores a lot of their points. So that'll just about do it here for the Ravens. Pittsburgh is up next. I'm going to work on that right now. Make sure to check out all the other videos. And I'm out. Thanks for watching.